Hey, one and all,
Hey.
what's up? It is two Dynamite Dudes With Attitude. I am Dominic DeAngelo of WrestleZone.com, and here with me, as always, is my degenerate brother, Marcus. Marcus,
Oh,
thanks for coming on
always,
again.
always a pleasure to talk wrestling. Dominic, it's if I had a different partner, Shawn Michaels to my Diesel, as it were, it might be a little better, but hey, I'll get by.
So I'm the Shawn Michaels in this scenario, is what you're saying. I am
I
the
said
established.
I need a Shawn Michaels to my Diesel.
Okay. Well, I kind of am though, if you think about it. Like, I'm the worker. You're kind of observing, and then
I was your heater in high school, Dom.
that's right. That's right. Were you? You didn't do a lot. You didn't do a lot at high school. You weren't my heater in high school.
I was your heater. Whenever somebody would be mean to you, I would become aggressive with them.
Is there an instance you can recall this?
Yes, I'm not going to say the guy's name, but he was giving you a rough time in basketball, and I pulled him aside and had a little moment.
I'm trying to think when that was.
Threw a couple Kevin Nash patented elbows.
Gave him the snake eyes off the basketball rim.
That's right.
Off the corner of the bleachers.
Yeah. So hey, just doing what any good heater would do, Dom.
Well, thanks, big man.
Absolutely.
So this was quite the show of Dynamite. Lots of very newsworthy. I think I know the answer. What's your biggest takeaway?
Well, I mean, it's got to be me calling the one and only Matt Cardona. I mean, for me to say I'm calling it, it's ridiculous, but I'll take credit because obviously he's good friends with Cody. Everybody knew this was pretty much a foregone conclusion. So I was glad to see him. He looks big as a house, very muscular and tanned up.
Island.
Yep. So, man, I hope they treat him right. I know Cody will make sure that he does get the right kind of treatment there. And man, it's things are looking up.
Now, he looks great. He carries with him like everybody else does, like that got essentially released from WWE, like a cast off in a lot of ways. So they got that vibe going. Initially, if you're in AEW's position and if you're in Zack Ryder's or Matt Cardona's position, how do you counteract that?
Well, if I'm Matt Cardona, I do not lean into the Zack Ryder persona. He's gotta evolve, not unlike a Terry Funk or Chris Jericho, where he's saying like, okay, that's who I was back then, but now I'm like, I'm more. Back then, he was more like this fun-loving, happy-go-lucky bro type, and so now I think he's got to come in and just be a very aggressive guy, like come in and right out of the gate show that like, no, I'm nobody to piss around with. Like I was fun before, but now I'm taking this very seriously. And also like have that chip on your shoulder. Like, hey, they let me go because they didn't understand what they had. So now I'm going to show AEW what I have, So I think that should be kind of the vibe with him. As far as AEW and handling him, give him some free reign. Zack Ryder, he's a really interesting case because he's one of the guys that first took advantage of the internet. He sort of revolutionized using the internet and social media. So this guy knows how to get himself over if they let him do it. So I mean, give him some rope and let him get to work with it.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because his Long Island IZ personality, I always thought is kind of him ramped up to 11. Like that's kind of what you get with Matt Cardona. If he was like, if you put him like, okay, this is how Stone Cold Steve Austin is up to 11. This is how Matt Cardona is up to 11 is Long Island IZ. Do you have that vibe, or is there a certain thing? I mean, you listen to his podcast on a regular basis. You're certainly invested into that. Do you get more of a? Have we seen him like already? Like I know you're saying like, he needs to get away from that, but is that part of him? You know what I mean?
Are you asking if he has that in him?
Does he have like that different gear in him? Like, is this up? Is the up to 11 Matt Cardona? He's not. That's not Zack Ryder, is it? Or is it? Like how is he going to play that off? Because if that's him to an extent, is he going to be able to shake that vibe off of him, of that broski slash woo 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 it kind of vibe, or is this something you know is there something he can work towards changing that vibe or that outlook on him or perception?
That's hard to say. I mean, you raise a valid point. In that Zack Ryder turned up to 11. I don't know that that's the same personality as Matt Cardona. So his Zack Ryder character, even in Long Island IC, after listening to that podcast, like what I've learned of Matt Cardona is that he's just like he's just like a regular dude. He's like a guy that likes lifting weights and he likes collecting wrestling figures, and he's just like he's kind of like a big kid who got to live his dream. You know what I mean? So I don't know necessarily if he can pull a Stone Cold, which is like Stone Cold is.
That's not what I mean. I don't mean pull a Stone Cold. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying pull his own personality that we haven't seen yet up to 11. That's what I'm saying. And you're adding on to that, like, we have kind of seen that in a lot of ways, I guess, in WWE, like that him in ways, because like we got that kind of vibe of like he's living his dream. He won the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania, all that stuff in the ladder match. So that kind of thing. But is there necessarily like intrigue to see that? You know what I mean? Because like we're all fans in a lot of ways. Like everybody that's got they got their start, with a few exceptions, like as fans. So we don't. Is that going to translate over well to an audience that's be like, I got to pay to see him kick this guy's ass? You know what I mean?
Well, so I think that this is kind of us, as fans, and the company kind of dipping the toe with that, where you're saying like, we're gonna set you loose now. Like, I will say this much: I think the easiest way to answer all of this is to put it this way: Zack Ryder is played out. Zack Ryder, the character, and who he was, what he was able to do. I say, put it in your rearview mirror. Now, like, let's see what kind of a character you can build with Matt Cardona. Obviously, Matt Cardona is not, his behavior is not the same as the character Zack Ryder, but he created a convincing character that people enjoyed. So now Matt Cardona, the person, needs to make Matt Cardona, the performer, a very interesting person. And just like, let's try something new with it. Like, how about he's just like this ass kicker from Long Island, like this guy from Long Island who like, I grew up in a good household. I grew up in a nice place. I grew up in the suburbs, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to kick the crap out of you if you cross me. So I think that there's a way to play it. Honestly, I trust Matt Cardona to choose the right way to do it. He's got a good head on his shoulders, and if he's able to get himself over, using the internet like he did, let's see what else he can do.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he translate. And like, he's got his debut match next week, tagging with Cody against the Dark Order. So it's like we'll get to see a very different guy than we're used to seeing in WWE. So it's definitely going to add some intrigue. I mean, this week too, just as a quick thing, they won in the ratings again. Not as big of a divide as it was last week, but pretty decent size. They're both made the 700,000s, but at AEW is a little bit higher. So having that, they got a lot of interesting like unknowns going into next week with So you have Zack Ryder's in-ring debut or Matt Cardona's in-ring debut. How's that going to translate? How's he going to look outside of the WWE product? Then you have the debate between Jericho and Cassidy and the secret moderator, who's the moderator kind of thing. Then like the MJF update. But let's before we get to some of that, what I want to start off about the intro at the beginning of the show, the opening match that certainly had a main event level match to open, like from perception of a card. But it goes back to what we were talking about last week, and that's short-term thinking is not their best attribute. Long-term booking and stuff is one of their highest qualities. But this, I think, honestly, this match really epitomized what's the flaws of AEW. Like, a lot of there's a lot of comedy spots, a lot of kind of just miscommunication, missed spots that really like reared its ugly head throughout this match. JR even commented about how like Aubrey Edwards can only do so much as a referee, like with all these people in there, and like it just was not. It did not for the people that were in the match, and the level of the match that it was supposed to be. It did not live up to expectations, and I think it really, really just showed the flaws of what AEW really needs to work on.
No question about it. I would go as far as to say that I'm sure Chris Jericho has been involved in worse matches. But as far as I know, as far as my opinion is concerned, this is the worst match I've seen him involved in his career.
Wow.
I thought it was terrible. And you're right. This pretty much epitomizes what is not to like about AEW. I like most of what AEW presents. This was the epitome of what I don't like. It's a clusterfuck, if you can pardon my language. It's it's a clusterfuck of a situation, and then you've got basically it's like, hey, we've got these guys, they're big characters. Not sure what to do with them this week. Yeah, get them all in there. Like that's how it felt. It felt very thrown together. And then so again, I mean, you can set your watch to these spots. Where like the spot I'm thinking of specifically is Luchasaurus with Marco Stunt on his back, and he runs and jumps out into the crowd. Like as they were beginning to get Marco Stunt on his back, I told my wife, I was like, hey, watch this. He's gonna jump off the apron onto a bunch of guys, and that's what he did. Chris Jericho was throwing some of the worst working punches I've ever seen. So it wasn't even a guy who's one of the better wrestlers out there right now. Was struggling in this match, and I don't know if he's checked out. I hope that's not the case. I hope he was just having an off night. But man, it is not the best that I've seen, and we know that Chris Jericho can be incredibly entertaining. That was not it. Yeah, terrible match. I really hope they can turn that around, but I guess they say that they're wrestling entertainment for everybody. I get that there's a market and there's people that are interested in seeing all the planches and jumping off into a giant group of people. But like, let's keep it to one match a night, and let's not involve a guy like Chris Jericho, who's the star of your company.
It's like that having that many people in a match is just you're asking for it. You're asking for it, especially with the type of athleticism that a lot of those talents utilize. So it's like you have a guy that's like a brawler, more like Chris Jericho. And maybe having all five. I mean, this is not a too crazy of a statement, but having all 10 of those guys be like a Chris Jericho, a match like that could probably work a lot more smoother. But like you got like the Young Bucks who do their stuff. You got the Jurassic Express, and Marco Stunt's involved, and you got who else is in that match? There's just like all the inner circle. Like, I mean, Sammy Guevara is good and crisp and everything like that. But like, so you have those different types of plays. It's just like, yeah, tighten it up. And that was not, from the contrast of what we saw AEW open the week before with Eddie Kingston, that harsh promo, then going into that really good match between him and Cody that was like hard hitting and it told a great story and all that stuff. To this, it's like it was a deflator. It deflated out like I was amped up for this Dynamite coming up. I'm like, damn, I'm interested to see how Warhorse is gonna do. I'm interested to see what gets addressed in certain things, how they follow up with all this different thing, like all these. And the non-DQ match coming up, I'm like, I'm pumped for this one. And then like seeing that match, I'm like, dang it, this is exactly what they shouldn't have done to start the show. So.
It kind of took you out of it. It took you out of it. I mean, a match like that, if you're going to do it, I would do it 3 matches in, because like there's some casual viewers who are saying like, oh, this wrestling program is about to come on. I'm going to stick in and watch it. Let's see how it is. And then you see something like that and you're like, oh, Chris Jericho, wow, that is not good. Why is Chris Jericho doing that stuff? and then you change the channel. I just think a match like that, like a big cluster, one per event. If that's what you want to do, if have one per event and bury it in the middle of the card. I don't think it should be. I don't think it should be your curtain jerker, and it damn sure shouldn't be your closing act. So two big old thumbs down, Dom.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I did not like it at all. And let's go into this part too. Is the interesting segment with FTR signing the contracts and who shows up on Arn Anderson and Adam Hangman Page during the whole thing, and the stipulations of their contract of what we got to hear a little bit about, how they're getting to the basics of tag team wrestling, like 10 seconds in, like all that stuff. They had that in their clause of their matches of what they're gonna have. So let's pair that up though with MJF's speech too, and what he had to say during his State of the Industry address. And I tell you what, there is no doubt about that. At least MJF listens to Jim Cornette, because all that was reference to what Jim Cornette has said about AEW and what he said about certain stars of AEW and all that kind of thing. So him playing that up as like as MJF does, and then like saying that John Moxley is not his champion and stuff, and even this aspect of it too. Jim Cornette has been calling Moxley like this fake Stone Cold. So like, and he referenced Stone Cold when referencing Moxley and stuff like that. So and I've heard somewhere that like, and not like a source in the industry, not whatsoever, just through a friend and everything like that. But I've heard that like a lot of these AEW guys listen to Cornette. So I kind of want to get your perspective.
He's a respected name. Whether you agree with all the things he says, which nobody does because he says some crazy things. Whether you agree with everything he says or not, the guy knows professional wrestling. And so, that right there, Dom, the MJF's big moment there last night, I think that is indicative of him really having his finger on the pulse of what's going on in pro wrestling and how to get over in pro wrestling. So not only is he great on the mic, but the thing is that he knows that a guy like Jim Cornette, if you were able to bring a guy like Jim Cornette into your company and make him the voice of like a heel, for example, and just let him say what he wants, say the kind of things that he says on his podcast about pro wrestling. MJF knows that if you were to do that, Jim Cornette would be the biggest heel in the industry. So now MJF, as a guy who, there's my cat, as a guy who, MJF is a
named
guy
after who, Marcus? Who's your cat named after?
Luna Vachon, my cat. But so MJF wants to become the biggest heel in the industry. So he knows that if there's one person to quote, it's Jim Cornette. So absolutely nailed it. And yes, I love the references to like Cornette's podcast. And yeah, of course, a bunch of the guys do. I heard that FTR got some heat when they first came into AEW because they were guests on Jim Cornette's podcast. And, they're regular listeners and have a lot of respect for Jim. Why would you not have respect for Jim? Jim has been in the business since the 70s. He's probably one of the biggest heels in the business in the 80s. You have to respect his resume. You don't have to respect him as a human. If you disagree with some of the polarizing things that he says, I 100% get it. Sometimes I listen to his podcast and I'm like, good grief. Like,
yeah,
he's
we're
irreverent. Very, very irreverent at times. But the guy knows the business and he knows how to book angles. And so I was really happy to see MJF kind of use that and see it for what it is, which is an opportunity to make himself the biggest heel in the business.
Yeah. The question I have, so like, I honestly think like, from like creative and structure perspective, yeah, like a lot of what Cornette says makes plenty sense of what you want to do, like to market your wrestling product. And even JR throughout the show, you can see JR make subtle hints about like, hey, this is not working, or this is not what should be
when he was
happening.
talking about Aubrey Edwards, you know, and the crap that she was putting up with, where like she was basically waving her arms and nobody was looking at her. They were all just punching each other in the ring.
Yeah, and like, so, and the fact that, and this leads into what we were talking about earlier too. Next week is the 12-man tag match, a 12-man tag match, 6 more people, or
Nobody wants to see that crap.
6 people each. So it's like, and even JR was like, how you better have 2 referees for that one, like saying stuff like that. So it's like, a lot of these guys, like, yeah, you don't have to like Cornette as a person. You don't have to agree with what he says or like listen to his podcast even. You don't have to do any of that. But like the point is
Respect
like guys like him, guys like JR, and like even just guys with experience like Arn Anderson and all that stuff. They know what they're talking about, like in regards to wrestling.
And here's the thing: that as you know, Dominic, pro wrestling fans notice everything that happens. So like that's why you want to Luna Vachon, my man, with her main squeeze. I guess I'm the Bam Bam in this scenario.
Yeah, you probably are. Maybe. Yeah.
But in any case, the reason so pro wrestling fans notice everything that happens at these events, and so that's why it's important to treat it like it's a shoot, like it's all a shoot. And that's something that Jim Cornette is very good about. That's something that Jim Ross wants. It's something that Arn Anderson respects. Like, you have to treat it all like it's a shoot. Even with Orange Cassidy is putting his hands in his pockets. You can make it work, but treat it like it's a shoot. Like, hey, this goof is out here putting his hands in his pockets. I'm going to knock his block off. If he thinks he can put his hands in his pockets against me, I'm going to break his jaw. You know, like, they've got to come with that kind of a vibe.
Yeah. And you know what? That would only benefit Orange Cassidy. Say if he, like, puts his hands in his pockets and, like, Jake Hager slugs him. Say that he gets knocked down. Cassidy's like just wipes it back up, looks at it, gets pissed off, fired up, and starts firing back away at him. You know, and then you got something going there. You know, but like that was a moment in the match too, where it's like you can kind of do that stuff. You can be like, you know, if you want him to do like the little shin kicks and stuff like that, you can kind of play that off as like the guy's kind of like, okay, what the fuck is this? Like, what are you doing? Like that kind of thing. And you can kind of have a little moment in that regard, but you can't overdo it. You can't overdo it. And they kind of overdid it in that regard. But with all that stuff too, I'm curious, you know, a lot of the guys, if they do listen to it, and they have a strong enemy in Jim Cornette, and what he says about them kind of gives them like a lot of reasoning to not like him because he is so abrasive in that regard. So do you think that's counterproductive though? So now say, you know what I mean? So like in regards to making the product better, are they going to push back against it? Well, we don't want to like necessarily go with what Jim Cornette's saying, and this is what Jim Cornette's telling us. So let's just do what we want to do in regards to it. Can you see that kind of happening, or do you think there'll be some sort of meeting of the minds? Because I said this on the WrestleZone live with Kevin, is that and Robert D. Felice. I said that we were talking about JR and how like JR was pretty open about like, hey, some of these guys don't listen to what I have to say, or like they wanted to get rid of the tag ropes and all this kind of thing. And like, so JR is pretty open. And I said, that's great for AEW to have somebody like that. And at least you're hearing that. And like, whether that causes friction or makes the company look bad right now, at least you that's what you brought, partially what you brought JR in for, is to be that like advisor and kind of things like that. So ultimately, hopefully you want that stuff to move forward, and like there be a meeting of the minds of both these styles. Okay, let's try to find a way to make this all work with one another. And maybe they're doing that with these upcoming storylines of having FTR and all this different thing. And like, so maybe they're kind of hinting at that in a lot of ways. But yeah, man, what do you think in regards to,
you know? So the idea is that AEW is kind of by the wrestlers for the wrestlers, right? So I think that in all likelihood, that's something that FTR came to Tony Khan with, legitimately said, like, I want to be involved in tag matches where it means something when there's a 10 count. So like, that's why they're saying it's written into their contract that officially has to be it, because I think that that's probably something that FTR, you know, these are a couple very confident guys who say, I would rather not make as much money and be satisfied with what I'm doing. So I can 100% picture those guys going to Tony Khan and saying, look, we're willing to sign the contract, but I don't want to be involved in goofy tag matches. Like, I want to be involved in legitimate tag matches. So that's why they have to add clauses and stuff into their contract. So I'm guessing that that's something similar to what happened. And man, I'm hoping that I mean, even if you're going to create a divide, say like make it a storyline, create a divide between people who want to do all the high flying stuff, and then wrestlers who are like they want to put a stop to that. So like guys like FTR, if somebody goes up to the top rope, it would be a great heel thing to roll out side of the ring and start walking away as soon as the guy goes to the top rope, right? Where you just like completely kill his opportunity to come launching at you.
Yeah.
You know, like have them actively trying to stop people from doing their high spots, make it part of the storyline.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's one solution. The other solution is have your like plancha crazy luchador mask or match first, then let's put on a regular match, and then maybe another regular match. And if you got to put in some more flippy flies, then do another one of those matches. You know what I mean? I think that there's a way for everybody to win. I know that AEW is still young and they're still feeling it out, but like, you know, I hope they start conceiving of reasonable solutions.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the Marvel comic storyline Civil War?
Yes.
Yes. So maybe you could play it off like that in a lot of ways. So you have, you know, guys like FTR that might be on the more heelish side, and you have somebody like Hangman Page who people really, really like on that kind of side too. The philosophy, that difference of philosophy
Cody
kind of splits it down. Yeah, Cody and different things like that. And so then you have people on each side that you want to cheer for or boo against, and like that would be kind of pretty interesting to have something like that set up. It would be a very intricate storyline you'd have to play out and think through very well. But yeah, that's something to think about for sure.
And so then Dominic, what that's doing too is also making it mean more when somebody's able to hit one of those moves like the planches and stuff.
Sure, yeah.
Their opponents are actively avoiding it. So like if you go 3 matches where it's been actively avoided and they're kind of forcing it to stay on the ground and keep ground wrestling, then during the 4th match when somebody actually nails one of those, think about the pop the crowd would give.
Yeah.
It's just that's how I look at it. I hope that's how they do it. Honestly, you know, as much as Jim Cornette is a polarizing figure, if I were Tony Khan, I would say, Jim, I don't want you to ever come to our building. I don't want you to ever be in, because he likes staying in Kentucky or wherever he is anyways. Is he in Kentucky or Tennessee? I don't remember.
Kentucky. He's in Kentucky, I believe.
Right. So you say, Jim, stay where you are. You can do this from home. But once a week, I'd call him and just talk to him, get his ideas, consult with him, and send him a check. That's what I would do with Jim. So if Tony Khan is smart, which I know he is, I think you should consider doing something like that.
You know, it's kind of wild. Like, and this is like way broad of a thing, but from like even like a global perspective, more like a national perspective, everybody's at this huge divide of like, you know, you have somebody that like you have these people that bitch about wearing masks, and you don't have these people that think everybody should be wearing masks and, you know, taking all the precautions and stuff like that. There's such a divide between everybody. And like, it's kind of fascinating that wrestling really reflects that in such a smaller way in regards to like how people think philosophically, how people view people, certain people in the industry, and look at them and frame them in a certain way and get labeled. It's crazy how much wrestling kind of reflects what's going on from a national perspective in a lot of ways in regards to how the fans view it and devour the product in a lot of ways. I just think that's kind of crazy.
No doubt about it. It is. It's crazy how that seems to happen all the time. And you know, Dom, I think that the real answer is let's make it something for everybody. Which, by the way, Dom, the way that WCW was successful, so everybody talks about like, oh well, Goldberg and Hall and Nash came over, and like Hogan turned heel, and all those things were great, and they're all very traditional storyline things, right? You got the big bruiser who you can't beat. You've got people defecting, which has always been a thing in wrestling, and then you've got the established babyface turning heel. Those are all classic things. But then all of a sudden, we're also mixing in luchadors. You know, so you've got, I can't tell you how many of the crazy cluster matches they were having. back in the day with like Hector Garza. He'd do that crazy like spinning thing off the top rope into a big group of guys. So this is not some new phenomenon. It's just a new phenomenon that is happening all the damn time. So
Yeah.
like let's use it sparingly, just like they did in WCW, and the cruiserweights got super over with everybody because of that. So do it sparingly, and then the rest of it, let's just make it a straight wrestling program. And I'm telling you, they will have success.
Yeah. No, absolutely, man. All right, we gotta hammer through a few things here.
Yes.
Cody and Warhorse, what'd you think?
I wish that Cody would have really manhandled him throughout the most of the match, but it was cool to see Warhorse as kind of like this underdog who is fighting his way through it. Overall, I thought it was a good match. I was impressed with Warhorse's in-ring ability. I didn't think he was going to be as technically sound as he was, but he did a good job, and he held his own, keeping up with one of the best wrestlers on the face of the planet. So kudos to him.
And you know what? One of my favorite moments of the whole show was at the end where like Cody went to shake his hand, and the Dark Order came charging in. He shoves Cody out of the way and just gets beat down, like takes the beating. No, he's gonna take the beating. I thought that was such a cool moment, like cool little moment that took place. And back to the little details kind of aspects of things, and like what that says about like how a match like that was booked was I was really appreciative of that. I like that a lot, and I thought. It took me a little bit, like starting off for to me to get attached to Warhorse. But yeah, you're right. Like his moves, his work in the ring, and everything like that, and the way that JR, Taz, and Tony Schiavone put him over. I thought they did a very good job at that, and like is somebody that I would not mind seeing whatsoever on a regular basis in AEW. So
I agree. The only change I'd like to see with that match is, like I said, I would have liked to have seen Cody on top, like being the aggressor for most of the match, like really kind of taking him behind the woodshed, but then Warhorse just catching him and kind of taking advantage at times and saying like, "Wow, this kid, man, he's getting away with some stuff against the TNT champion," you know?
Yeah. Speaking of the Dark Order, they had the tag team title match against Hangman and Kenny. What'd you think of that?
It was okay. I feel they do still feel a little bit directionless. I feel like we're starting to get somewhere as far as like maybe it's going to be them versus the Elite. So that's looking like that's the way it's going to go. So we're starting to get somewhere. Still felt by and large directionless, but I'm optimistic.
Yeah, that was the best match I've seen Evil Uno and Stu Grayson have since being in AEW. I don't know I have not seen their Super Smash Brothers work previously, but like what they did that night, I thought was great, and I think that they look like a credible tag team together. So
yeah, I think that Stu Grayson always tends to show out whenever he's in a match. He's always got some pretty good spots, and he shows his athleticism. But this time around, Evil Uno, particularly the way that he took. There's one moment where Kenny sort of launches him and then into a Hangman Page German suplex. And
yes.
As they were doing it, I remember having seen that move before, and I was like, Evil Uno is not going to take this well. But he was very acrobatic, and it was very fluid movement. So I was pretty blown away with his ability to take like kind of a more complex bump like that.
Yeah, and you know what? He's got a pretty strong social media presence too. He's pretty good at it if you follow him on Twitter.
Yeah. I think that we're starting to get somewhere. Hopefully they turn that ship around.
And I liked it too. I liked Luke Gallows' not Luke. Oh my gosh, Brody Lee's facial reactions and stuff when everybody got attacked, and he was kind of grinning about it even nonetheless. I thought they had more of a little bit. We saw progression of a direction coming. So
yeah,
I thought that was pretty good. Main event, Brian Cage and Ricky Starks against Darby Allin and Moxley. What'd you think?
I think that they had an interesting idea with that skateboard spot. But thing is, Dom, when somebody's power bombing you or you're taking any kind of a bump, a flat back bump, you are in control of yourself and you're able to control the way that you take the bump, right?
Uh-huh.
When somebody's coming off the top rope with a skateboard onto your back, he's got forward momentum coming toward your back. So he's not gonna hit you flat and then bounce off. He's going to hit and scrape, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
So I know that you saw Ricky Starks' injuries probably. Brian Cage posted
Oh my gosh.
photos.
Yeah.
That to me, that's not entertaining. That's like, I don't want to see that happen to somebody on TV. So like that's taking it too far in my opinion. I don't think they should have done that. Aside from that though, it was a good match. Ricky Starks is showing, why he belongs for sure on.
Promo? That's what I wanted to ask you about, was his promo starting off the whole thing. I thought it. Oh man, did you get to see that part?
I did. Yes.
Yeah. I thought it was really
the guy belongs. He belongs on national television.
Absolutely, and it's like just really good stuff. I thought overall too, the match was really hard hitting, and like when it seeing the certain spots that they did and everything like that, I thought they all pretty much flowed together very well. Like, and I thought it was a very incredible main event too, in a lot of ways. So, I liked it, man. I liked it.
I'm laughing right now because I'm thinking about how, like, I remember being a kid and I'd have like G.I. Joes or wrestling figures or something. And I'd be like, oh, you know what'd be really cool is like this move, doing this to somebody in the ring. And I'd like have them do like some crazy thing that was 100% impossible. And that's what I feel like happened backstage when they were talking about that skateboard spot where Darby's like, see, the G.I. Joe, he'll like come off the top and he'll hit you on the back, and then I'll just fall off, and it'll look very painful. And it's like, no, dude, like that's not how it works in actual gravity in reality. So forward momentum onto something stationary means there's going to be a scrape.
Yeah. Man.
I was telling my wife, like, the thumbtack spot, I think it's something that looks impressive, but it's really not that bad. Like if somebody said, "Hey, I'll give you $50 to flat back bump on some tacks," I'd be like, "Okay." I would, and you can record me doing it if you pony up $50. I don't care. I would do it. I would do it. But like,
I bet. Oh, dude, I could imagine you when it came to nut cutting time. You'd be like, "Oh, I don't know."
No, look, man. If you got hydrogen peroxide and you're willing to pull all those tacks out of my back, I do it for $50. But I would not in a million years let somebody take a skateboard with those things on the bottom of them off the top rope. I'd be like, you give me $10,000. I'm not doing it. I don't want that.
Gosh.
So good for Ricky Starks. He's pretty bold. I get the feeling though that he was watching the G.I. Joes with Darby Allin, and he was like, okay, yeah, it worked with them. That seems fine.
Holy smokes. No, I think I like the team name too. Did you see the team name, Team Taz? Just simple. It's like the Heenan family. Yeah, man.
Absolutely. I saw that somebody online was saying that it's like very egocentric for Taz. It's like, no, dude, like you had the perfect response. You're like, no, like the Heenan family, and Taz actually liked your response. So,
yeah. So
you're 100% right. It's the perfect name for those guys, and they've kind of got like a weirdly kind of similar look in Brian Cage and Ricky Starks. Like they look like they fit together, so it's kind of neat.
I'm excited to see where it goes, and I think too, like I think we mentioned this last week too. The contrast between Ricky Starks and Darby, I think is a rivalry made for each other. I think that's
absolutely.
Gonna be pretty cool.
And I'll tell you what, like allowing yourself to take a horrific spot like he did. I mean, that'll get some heat going, right? Because now it's like, okay, this is like some blood has been drawn. Like this is a big deal.
And it got the pin. You got the pin from that too. So it's like there's so much you can go off of, like that's gonna really fire Ricky up and get that them going at one another too.
Overall. Like the classic 3 matches where Ricky Starks goes over and either the first one or the first 2, and then let Darby take the last one.
Dude, they need to do the best of 7 series, like Booker T and Benoit.
That would be something else. I'd be 100% on for that. But the final match should be like some kind of weird like Iron Man match or something.
Something like that. Yeah, something where there's something going on. Let me think. Is there anything else that really stood out to you? Is there anything I'm missing that
No, I think you nailed it. You know, at the top of the program, you had said that there's kind of a stigma with these guys that are coming in now to these different promotions that they're cast-offs from WWE. Well, let me say, Dom, Cody Rhodes was a cast-off from WWE. I think that you can make a lot of damn money and you can get yourself over, even with that stigma. It's just a matter of these guys taking the bull by the horns. I'm sure they're all watching. So, gentlemen and ladies, take advantage.
Well, so now this is my thought process too in regards to some of that as well. Is like Cody, at least Cody went out. You know, when he left, he went out. So he went to ROH. He went all over it. He had a list, you know, and he did all these different things and went to Japan and everything. Like, so he really put himself out there on the independent scene. And so, but these guys, a lot of these guys, were with good reason, they get released. They're obviously going to get signed pretty right away. So, like, somebody like Matt Cardona, you just see him go from WWE, boom, another major company. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but like Cody built up like a cachet among fans, and where it's kind of almost, and in a way, it's going to be at a disadvantage for these guys that jump from WWE to another promotion, another televised promotion, because they gotta remove that vibe that WWE created for them and that they've been in for such a long time. Somebody like, you know, Matt Cardona is the perfect example. Been there for what, over 10 years at least? Oh, well over 10 years. So yeah, it's like
he was originally signed in 2006 or 2007, something like
that. So like, for him to, it's going to be so tough for people to shake that vibe they have off. So you know, that's the kind of thing that might be a little bit different from, you know, say Scott Hall and Kevin Nash jumping from WWE to the WCW. You know, I don't know. It's interesting. I'm not saying it can't happen and it won't happen. I just want to see how it gets handled. It's kind of what it boils down to. So.
Yep. No, I agree. You know, one way to have gotten Matt Cardona over right out of the gate is wait another week and then have him be the secret entrant for the TNT title and go over. Because, you know, I think that's a real way to kickstart a guy coming into a territory and kind of help him, nudge him along. But I kind of like that they didn't do that, Dom, because I'm hoping that they're going to be smart about this and let Cody just beat everybody for like upwards of a year, 9 months at least. Let him just beat all comers that try to take the TNT title. And then you bring in somebody like, off the top of my head, how about Joe Hennig? Bring in somebody like that and have him go over. And then it's going to mean a lot. And now you've got this fresh shot in the arm for a talented guy like Joe Hennig, and you've got a feud.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see how they go about coming up. Like, there's a lot of, we're still getting those red herrings and teases about who's gonna turn heel, who's gonna do all this stuff. What's with this Four Horsemen vibe going on? Is, you know, ultimately what I'd like to see is FTR. They can stay on the heel side, obviously, but I'd like to see them kind of pull a fast one on everybody and be like, okay, we teased Hangman wanting to be friends with them, but maybe they do something that Hangman's just like, I don't like that. Okay, guys, I'm kind of turned off by that. Fuck you. You know? And like maybe go ahead. Yeah. What?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. How about they act like they're going to form the new Four Horsemen, and then turn on Hangman? Like, they're all in the ring for, like, they're announcing that they're like the newest version of the Four Horsemen. Then they just beat the crap out of them.
Yeah, with Arn.
Yeah, beat up Arn too.
No, Arn joined in on.
Oh, like Arn leaves Cody.
Yeah, Arn leaves Cody, or Cody goes with FTR and beats up
Hangman.
Yeah.
You know, like the Four Horsemen thing, we had Fortune in TNA, which is an abomination. You know, there's been a lot.
I love that.
I remember the promo where Ric Flair was like, "You guys aren't as good as us, but you're like the new Four Horsemen." that is not how you get somebody over. But But no, so it's very played out, the Four Horsemen thing. Like that would be like a fake NWO coming in. It's just I don't want to see it. I don't think anybody else wants to or needs to. So tease it like it's going to happen, and then how about just Cody and FTR?
Let's not lie here. People want to see it. People want to see it.
Why? Why would
I think
anybody
you
want
took
to?
a poll, Marcus. You took a poll if they were like, would you want to see the Four Horsemen in AEW? Yes or no? I think it would be overwhelmingly yes. You know what?
No.
I'm gonna make that.
You're probably right, but it's silliness.
Yeah.
I would like to think that that's not the case, but you're probably right. There's some people who probably want to see it. Just like I'm sure there's still people that are like, they should start the NWO with AJ Styles and John Cena or whoever. And it's like, no, because it's not going to work because it's already been done.
It's already been done. They already established it, and it's time to move on. You can come up with a new NWO that's not called the NWO, but it's their own thing. Like Nexus had. But
they've proven it's possible in the years since, Nexus, Evolution, so they've proved that it's possible to do like other factions and make it work. So just make it work.
Yeah, make it work. Cool. How do they follow you on Twitter, Marcus?
At Keystone MPD. Yes. They haven't really been sharing that much interesting stuff, I guess.
No cowboy stuff.
It's cowboy stuff. I shared a thing of Triple H when he was Jean Paul in WCW. That was entertaining. But I stole that from Conrad Thompson, so you can probably just follow him. I don't know. Follow me.
Hey, it's Conrad on. Yeah.
Yeah, go to hey it's Conrad. But if you want to follow me at Keystone MPD.
Yes.
And Dominic, they follow you where?
They follow me at Dominic DeAngelo, my full name. That's it. We had some interviews drop this week. I did a few. Von Erich's, one of my favorite interviews I've ever done, was with Ross and Marshall Von Erich. We talked for almost an hour about just how they grew up in the business, or how they didn't kind of grow up in the business, but got into the business eventually with their dad, and just talk about their faith, all that stuff. And then I interviewed Crowbar, and that's a fascinating one. Like, it's not the Crowbar that we were used to seeing in WCW. He's actually appreciate different stuff about wrestling, and he loves wrestling. And his challenge that he issued to Cody itself too is really, really fascinating and unique. And then we had some other ones. Chris Bay from Impact, the X Division champion currently. Bill Pritchard interviewed him. I know I'm missing some. We have some cool ones lined up.
For the love of God, when's your interview with Terry Funk coming out?
It's coming next week. So that will be up. I'm super excited for that. I'm going to try to pair up not only just a feature piece on it, but I want to do a book review as well for the book that we cover, because that's what I used for the entire base of the interview was his biography from 2006. So I'm super excited. I've been telling everybody I'm chomping at the bit for that thing to get published. I'm so pumped for it. So
yeah,
that'll be probably next week. So other than that, tune into WrestleZone. The WrestleZone podcast. Just type in WrestleZone on your podcast feed of choice. We should pop right up. We got good stuff with Kevin Kellum and Robert DeFelice always on the WrestleZone Live. Bill Pritchard's got plenty of interviews he's been nailing out. And we always just got irons in the fire happening. You get to see my degenerate brother here once a week too. He gives some good insight. I'll give you that, Marcus. I smell what you're stepping in a lot of the times, more often than not. So
thank you, sir. And Dom, I think you should clip the Civil War part of this. It might make for some good feedback on the old Twitter.
Oh, that's what I was thinking too, man. I did not expect to bring that up at all. I didn't even think about that. But once we started going hey, old school wrestling with this new mindset, I was like, this kind of seems like something that. And plus, you had these the heels are saying kind of babyface stuff that I agree with. I'm this is kind of true. You guys got to kind of work on this shit. So,
yep.
But so it's and you have those different, and Cody goes by that philosophy too, who's established babyface. So, yeah. You know what? I'll clip that in. So, all right, Marcus, it's been a good little convo this week. I like it. I dig it.
Absolutely.
Plus a Luna run in.
Yeah, we got a Luna run in, so that's hard to beat. She's tame now. She's just relaxing over here. So yeah. By all means, follow her on my Twitter. I'll post a photo of her every once in a while if there's some call for it. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and tune in to AEW Dynamite Wednesdays at 8 p.m. on TNT, and tune in to our podcast every week.
Every Friday.
It's a good pairing, Dom. It's good. It's like wine and cheese. It's just a good pairing.
Yes. Are we a red wine or a white wine?
We're the cheese in this scenario, Dom.
Oh, I see. Okay. We'll be Brie. Okay. See you guys.
All right.